Hello, it's Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and I'm in a different environment. I'm actually where I paint with my friend Marge Frankie. And so I happen to be here, so I thought, well, I might as well do this Friday's Feast from here because I talk about painting and writing and coaching and all of those things. So I just happen to be here to do that, so that's why things look a little different. So what I want to talk about today is, what I want to focus on is first of all, there's a statistic, and I used to say the statistic was 70% of our thoughts that we think are negative in nature. And I just read that it's actually 80% is negative. 80% of our thoughts, generally speaking, are negative in nature. Can you imagine? We don't even think about that. So we don't even imagine that that's the truth because we're so in the thinking process, the patternings of our thinking, that we don't even think about that. The other element that I read was that 95% of our thinking is sort of repeated patterns over and over and over again. And so all of this stuff is stirring in our heads, and most of us don't even pay attention to that. So for me, it showed up first as a writer. I mean, it showed up a long time ago in terms of how I saw myself in the world as insignificant, not enough, unworthy, all of that kind of stuff. But all of the worries that I lived with, all of the guilt that I lived with, thinking that what I was doing was not the right thing, and the shame, what I'm being, who I'm being, isn't enough. So the patterns of all of that is just sort of a common thing that I was brought up in. And then as I grew up and I started doing things, it was really hard to go against the grain of the negative thinking. Plus, I was reading newspapers and magazines and watching the news, which is full of negativity. All of that stuff continues to go on and bombard our brains. If we go on Facebook, like we're all on Facebook right now, that we're bombarded with what other people are doing and what other people are saying and how that impacts on us. And again, that contributes to how we're seeing the world or how we're perceiving, how we're thinking about ourselves in the world. And if you're like me as a self-employed person, or you're working for a company and you'd like to make progress or have more money or a different position, that part of you that says it won't happen, it doesn't happen to me, it can't happen, those elements continue to stir at a level that's unconscious. So that played itself out in many ways, like I was saying. But when I started my first book, Self-Empowerment 101, which is kind of what this is about, the Self-Empowerment 101, I kept getting these, every day I'd start to write and I'd get these thoughts. It's like, who are you to write a book? You know, you don't know anything. You just think you're a big smarty pants. Like, you just don't have any right to write these books. So that was, it just was so crushing. I kept writing, but I had to go against these negative thoughts. And so that was sort of a training ground for me to hear the negativity, but then begin to discount it, to move it away so that it wasn't influencing me in my writing. So then later when I heard this 70%, it was 70%, now it's 80%, that the negativity of our brains, of our thoughts is 80%, I thought, I don't want to live like that. And I can't imagine that you want to live that way. I can't imagine any of us saying, yeah, I want to choose to live in 90, 80% negativity. This is like, yeah, that's where I'm happy. It's like, I don't think that's what's true for you. I just kind of think that, but I might be wrong. But the point here is that we have the capacity to shift that. And that's what I decided to do, is to go from what I thought was 70%, now 80%, but to say, I don't want to live in 70% negativity. What would my life be like if I focused on removing some of that negativity and making it 65, and then 65 to 60. Now, I don't know where I'm at in that whole gradient thing, but I know that my life is now more positive, and the circumstances that show up in my life they're more positive. My ability to write, going from that first book to 12 books, that's a big deal. And I had to get over the negativity of that. And even being able to do these Fridays feasts with you, I had to get over some negativity about myself. How I would be received, what you think, all of those kinds of things. And have to do these Friday feasts because I want to, because they're fun, because I have something to say. You know, if there's something for you to hear, that's great. If not, you're going to go away anyway. So what we can do, if you're, the other thing I want to say is some of you may be coaches or working with other people, and you want people to trust you. I want people to trust me, and I want people to hire me to coach with them. And if I want them to trust me, am I trustworthy for myself? So I bring that in because to start the process of going from 80% negativity to 65, I have to start training myself to let go of those patterns. I have to trust myself to notice when I notice it, and to begin to say, nope, not doing it, can't do it, or, you know, stop that negativity, stop that thought, and redirect. And that's what I would do. And I'd do a judgment, a negative thought about somebody else, and I'd say stop, and I'd redirect. And that was really, really a helpful practice for me. I also cut out media stuff. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to anything that's going to create that negativity for me. You know, it's just too potent. It's too intense for me. So I tend to eliminate those things. I stay away from people in environments that are negative, that make me feel bad. It's just what I do. But being able to begin that process of saying, okay, I'm going to stop that because I want a positive life, because I want more positivity in my life, because I want to create the reality that I want, then I have to trust myself that I can do this. And that trustworthiness is really important. Like I started out by saying, we want other people to trust us, but do we trust ourselves enough to start these little practices? So right now I'm working on a painting little kind of practice of a seashell, and I have no idea how to do this. I've never done this before. I know how to make lines and paint, but I've never done this. And so I can be critical of myself, or I can pay attention and just to attend to the courage it takes to learn something new. And that's true with my clients. That's true with my writing. It's all these places with something new. And it's a place to experiment. So for me, and I love to encourage you to just be curious about how much of your life, your brain and thinking is focused on these negativities, and what are you willing to kind of consider to shift that from that negative to even neutral, or to just even stop that practice. Yoda in Star Wars said, train yourself to let go of what you're afraid to lose. And it's like, if I'm afraid to lose those negative thoughts, what's that about? What am I really afraid of? And to really answer that question for myself is a big deal. And it's a big deal, I suspect, for you too. So that's it. I think that if you're interested in growing yourself as a creative person, or as a coach, a therapist, or a person that's in a relationship with people, start to look at and be curious about who you are. And what is it? Negativity you bring to a relationship? Is negativity what you bring to people you love? It's just a fascinating thing, I think. All right. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoy these. Feel free to leave comments and let me know if this works for you. Other than that, have a great weekend. Bye for now.